Hi, I'm Andrea. Thank you so much for joining me for this 30-minute yoga practice. I have a yoga mat, but if you do not, try using your living room rug or a carpeted area in your house. It makes for a really good yoga mat. I use it too sometimes. I have two blocks, yoga blocks. If you don't have official yoga blocks in your house, a great substitute is two thick books. I also have a folded blanket and a beach towel or a thick bath towel, or the throw blanket from your couch will be a great way to accomplish a folded blanket of some sort. And we will start standing with our feet hip distance and parallel in our mountain pose, our foundational pose. And it's here that maybe the most important ingredients of our practice takes place. Instead of being distracted by an incoming text message or all the different distractions and excuses that can hit us when it's time to do yoga or any other time, let's choose to stand in stillness. And as we stand in stillness, we get a feeling of the arrows of attention turning inward instead of outward. Can you sense that? One of the primary tools for that is our breath. So when we inhale, let's really fully be present to our inhale. And the same as we exhale, fully present to our exhale. We breathe all the time or we wouldn't be standing, but we do it without paying attention. So let's choose to stand in the fullness of our breath and the fullness of our awareness for 1 minute together. That was 1 minute. Take your hands on your hips. You might, for this part, benefit from having your left hand on a wall or on the arm of your sofa or anything that you can find that might help with balance. We'll shift our weight onto our left leg and make sure that we don't let that left hip collapse. So hug your left hip underneath you. Hand or hands on your hip. Take your right leg out in front of you. Now from your hip joint, and you can actually feel this, turn your right leg out like you're dancing a jig, and then turn your toes back up to the sky and feel the evidence of that in your hip. Remember, left hip hugging in. We turn our right leg out. You can have something to hold on to, and then we turn our right leg up, and we'll do that one more time. Turn your right leg out, and now kickstand it to the inside of your left foot, which is when for all of us, it becomes very tempting to like hang out and talk to your friends, right? Let's hug this in instead. You'll talk to your friends later. And now place your right foot maybe into your shin. If you want to keep the kickstand, cool. Maybe right foot into left inner thigh. Let's get sturdy in the trunk of our tree. Arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, maybe even a V shape. Remember, left hand can be on something to assist. Think deep roots here in tree pose as we spread our branches. Two moments. Hands to our hips, turn your right leg forward, step down, and let's once again just stand in awareness. If we find awareness here in our mountain pose, we can translate it when we grow our trees. This time we shift our weight onto our right foot. And many of us are going to use something with our right hand to help us balance. Left hand on your hip. Hug that right hip in. So again, I'm going to remind you not to let that swing out to the side. Left leg in front of us, and then Left leg at its hip joint turns out, and then it turns back up to the sky. We'll do that two more times. So turn it out to the right, evidence in your foot, but actually happening in our hip. And then back up to the sky. One more time, turn your left leg out and then kickstand it. Let's get responsible in the trunk of our tree. Hug that right hip in. Totally great to stay ball of the left foot on the inside of your right arch. Might be that you place that left foot on your right shin. Possible that you put your left foot in the inseam of your right leg, and then we grow our branches, many of us with a little assist of right hand on a wall or on a chair. You could V-shape one or both arms, and then we just see if we can find some balance and breathe. Hands on your hips, turn your left leg forward, step down into our mountain. And then we step wide, but let's take care of some housekeeping prop business as we do. Take your 2 tall blocks and place them off the long edge of your mat. So we're creating one long edge as the front edge and one long edge as our back edge, and we don't want those blocks underfoot. Then we will step wide out to the side, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. Ankles underneath wrists is a very good place to start with our alignment, and then we'll refine from there. Turn your right leg out so that your right foot is facing the short edge of your mat. Cheat your left heel back at a 45-degree angle, and then bend your right knee, and if your knee is going forward of your ankle, which mine is doing a bit of, give yourself a little bit more room to play with. We'll be dynamic, so V-shape, arms overhead as we straighten our front leg, and that is our inhale. And then bend your front knee, arms float out to the side as we exhale. Straighten your front leg, inhale, arms overhead, V-shape. Bend your front knee, and arms extend out to the side with our exhale. Back and forth we go a few more times. Feel free to enjoy your own tempo. Next time you settle into your Warrior 2 lunge, let's stay and breathe for 3. Straighten your front leg and lower your arms. Turn all your toes to face that long edge of your mat. Turn your left leg out. Cheat your right heel back. Our spacing should be okay because we just did the other side, but we'll check. Arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. Bend your left knee. Looks vertical to me. You'll decide. Look at your own body, and then straighten your front leg, V shape. Arms overhead. That's our inhale. Exhale, bend in. Inhale, reach high. Back and forth we go, bending as we exhale, straightening as we inhale. Let's do 3-ish more. Your tempo might be a bit different than mine. That's great. And then we'll settle into our Warrior 2 lunge. And pause. 3 moments together here. Straighten your front leg. Turn all toes to face the long edge of your mat. We're staying with this long stance for a moment longer. Turn your right leg out, almost like when we danced our jig. Let your right foot face that short edge. Cheat your back heel, 45-degree angle, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. We're not side bending. Take your right arm, your right hand, like a karate chop to your right hip. Feel a hinge at your hip. That's what we want. So we hinge at our right hip and reach way out with our right hand. And our right hand finds one of our thick books or blocks on the outside of our right foot. We're thinking of keeping our right leg straight, but that's not something that feels like we're forcing it. So if you press into your right big toe mound, that will be one way to use your muscles to come towards a straight leg. If your left arm is getting tired, weave that left arm behind your back anytime you prefer to do it that way. triangle pose. Spin your inner upper arms away from one another so that you feel that you're creating some space in between your shoulders and your ears. And we'll take 15 seconds of silence in this shape. You're welcome to continue to meditate here. If you're interested, take your left hand on your hip. We will simply step this triangle onto our right leg and lift our left leg. I'll walk you through it. So look down, bend your right knee and move your block a foot in front of your right pinky toe. And then lift that left leg. We're not here long, but we have to hug that left hip underneath us as if dancing a jig so we can find an anchor for our balance. You might float your left arm up to the sky. Then I like to return my left hand on my hip. We'll step back to triangle where some of us have remained. And from our triangle, take your left arm up to the sky. Look down and bend your right knee like the warrior two that we did. Move your block off the side so it won't be underfoot. Come to warrior two for a moment and then straighten your right leg and turn all your toes to face the long edge of your mat. Our left leg turns out. Our right heel cheats back. Arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. Remember, not a side bend. Take your left hand, find that karate chop. I just feel like that makes things very clear. Hinge at your left hip. Reach way out with your left hand. Find your block or book on the outside of your left foot. Build a straight leg by pressing your left big toe mound into your mat and feeling your muscles move that front leg towards straight. We're not locked into the joints if we can help it. You might weave your top arm behind your back. You can even take that onto your hip if you're sort of digging that. And then let's spin inner upper arms away from each other. Make very long bottom ribs that rotate towards the sky. And 15 seconds of silent meditation on this side. Option to stay here or take your right hand on your hip. We look down and move our block a foot out in front of our left pinky toe. With a bent knee, we'll step up. If you feel that dancing a jig with your left hip gives you enough balance to float your right arm up to the sky while we're here, you can do that. And then I like to return my right hand onto my hip. We'll step back to triangle slowly, block outside of our left foot. And then this mindful exit takes care of some housekeeping along the way. Look down, bend your left knee, move your block and come up through warrior two. Straighten your front leg and turn all toes to face the long edge of your mat. Then heel toe until we're hip distance apart with our feet. Take yourself to the front edge of your mat. Stand hip distance and parallel in your mountain pose. Then inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to your thighs, or you can slide them to your shins or your ankles. Think about a hinge at your hip here too. Slide your hands up, inhale, lift your heart. Bend your knees deeply, place your palms on the ground. We're stepping to the first down dog of our day. So press the ground away with your hands, walk your feet as wide as your mat, bend your knees, be on the balls of your feet, and we're not collapsed into bent elbows. As we push the ground away, our hips lift up and back, and we feel a long spine, a long front body, two long side bodies. We'll step our feet a little closer to one another and shift into a plank position with our shoulders over our wrists, and then bring your knees down right to the ground underneath where they were in your plank. Once again, we want to check and make sure there's no collapse. So really mindfully push the ground away. With our belly firm, we lower slowly all the way down, and then uncurl your toes, bring your forearms onto your mat, parallel to the long edges of your mat, and we'll fashion a sphinx pose, tractioning our elbows towards us, not throwing our chin forward. That floats parallel to the ground, but letting our shoulder blades move towards one another and our heart move through the gateway of our arms. Lower down, bring your hands next to your floating ribs, curl your toes under, come through all fours in one piece, and let your hips lift you up and back into down dog. Keep pushing the ground away, even as we walk forward, feet to our hands and feet hip distance. Inhale, glide your hands up, lift your heart up. Exhale, fold in, slide your hands down. Inhale, rise, reach, thumbs to the sky, a V shape, and then we pause with our palms facing out. Let's do that again. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to your thighs, shins or ankles. Slide your hands up, inhale, lift your heart. Palms flat so that we can step down to down dog. I like to stay on my toes with bent knees, and then we shift. Shoulders over our wrists in a plank. Our knees come down. We're mindful to push the ground away and feel our core work as we lower in one piece onto our belly. Uncurl your toes. It could be Sphinx, or maybe leave your hands where they are. And it's Cobra pose. We're still not throwing our chin forward. Then we'll lower down from our gentle back bend. Curl your toes under. Come through all fours. And then lift your hips up and back and into downward facing dog. One more time through our sun salutation flow. Walk forward. Feet to your hands, feet are hip distance. Slide your hands up, inhale, lift your heart. Hinge at your hips, fold back in. And then rise, reach. Inhale, arms to the sky. We'll pause with our palms facing out. Inhale, V shape, arms reach to the sky. Exhale, hands to thighs, shins or ankles. Inhale as you slide your hands up, bend your knees, palms flat, and we step into down dog. From down dog, shift it to plank. Keep pushing the ground away, knees down, belly firm, all the way down. Uncurl your toes, let it be a cobra pose. And then lower down, curl your toes under, come through all fours. Let your hips and that hook in your tailbone take you to down dog. Continue to push the ground away. And then walk forward, feet come hip distance and parallel to our hands. Inhale, slide your hands up. Exhale, fold back in. And then inhale, rise, reach, thumbs to the sky, a V shape, and we stand, palms facing out in our mountain pose. It is very likely that you will want to use a wall or the arm of your sofa for the next thing that we dig into. We've been into the articulations of our hip when we did our dancing a jig, and then we took that into our standing poses. That's something called external rotation, just if it ever comes up in conversation, but I think it's really cool to know how our bodies work also. Every time we bend our knees, so let's do that together. Feet hip distance, V shape of your arms, bend your knees in chair pose. This is what's called flexion, and we sit like this a lot. In our cars, in front of our computers and televisions, etc. We'll stand up. And now let's investigate the opposite of flexion, which is hip extension. So hip extension, I'll stand now and face you sideways. Stand on your right leg and then lift your left leg off your mat and just let it float behind you a bit. That is extension at the hip joint. Let's add to that. This is where you might want to go to the wall and put your right hand on something. Kick yourself in the butt with your left foot and reach with your right hand towards that foot. Maybe you can catch it, maybe not. It doesn't matter if you do. It's actually easier if you do, but there's great value in actually not holding on to it. And then we'll just play with kicking that leg behind, and we'll feel that there's a stretch on the front of your left leg and quite a bit of work as your hamstring on that leg has to contract. So it gets shorter, and then we'll gently step down and stand in our mountain. Let me turn and face the other direction as we investigate and play with the second side of finding hip extension. So remember, flexion was like when we did our chair pose. Flexion is like how we live our lives quite a bit. Now as we stand, let's put our weight on our left foot and then just pick up your right foot and let that glide behind you. So we have an idea of what it means to extend at our hip joint. Then bend that right knee. Remember, you can absolutely use your wall or anything else. And we'll take our right arm towards our right foot. For many of us, that's as far as it goes. Maybe you hold on, and then we just feel all the feels. So stretch in the front of the right leg, contraction of our hamstring in that right leg. And we will carefully step down and step into our mountain and pause there for a sec. Using what we just discovered in a little bit of a standing flow, take your 2 blocks now from their position previous to on either side of you when you're facing the short edge of your mat, and move it just off to the side so that we don't have those underfoot. Feet hip distance, we stand into our mountain, and then we inhale, arms V-shape overhead. Exhale, hinge at our hips, hands to thighs, shins or ankles. Slide your hands up, palms go flat on the ground. Step yourself into downward facing dog. Lift your right leg behind you, step your right foot forward. You might need to help it along. Take your blocks into the mix, and notice that in this lunge, it's the perfect example of flexion in our right hip, extension in our left hip. Now, because that extension is a little sticky, we just found it standing on one leg, let's bend our left knee a little bit so we don't have quite as much stretch needing to happen, and upright our torso as if we were doing our mountain pose over these 2 flexion and extension deals happening at our hip. And then just take your hands to your blocks, move those out of the way, make your way to down dog, lift your left leg behind you, step your left foot forward, no shame in helping it along. We'll take our blocks into the mix. Great way to find our way slowly into the stuff that we're nerding out on a little bit today. We've got flexion now in our left hip, extension in our right hip. Bend your right knee so that it's not quite as sticky. Come upright, thumbs to the sky, V-shape. We're in our crescent lunge, and we've got flexion and extension. You can straighten that back leg a little or a lot depending on how it feels in your body. Hands to your blocks, move them aside, down dog. Reach your right leg behind you. Step your right foot forward, help it along, and lower your back knee. This might be when you grab that folded blanket or towel to pad your back knee. And then some of us are going to benefit from using our block underneath our left hand. And I want you to be real careful of that back leg. Remember, we stood and did this where we kicked ourselves in the butt. Now it's your right hand that will reach for your left foot, and it might just be a reach, like for many of us it was standing. You could use a kitchen towel to lasso that foot if you want to. And then we'll pause and definitely start to feel extension at our left hip. 3 moments like this. If you want more stretch, you can bring your left hand onto your mat. Some people actually bring their forearm down. Not this person, but some people. Gently let go of your back foot. Take your 2 blocks, straighten your right leg, and a half split here. Let's create length in our spine and appreciate a little stretch in the back of our right leg for a moment. And then we make it a single pigeon, and I want us to do that carefully. Now we're returning to that external rotation from the very beginning of things. Bend your right knee, take one of your books, think I'm going to sit side saddle on my block or book. You can move the other one out of the way. Now, you can bend this right knee as much as you want or need to, and you can remain side saddle as much as you need to, but we'll walk our left foot back and see if we can make that extension happen with a straight or straight-ish back leg. And then lastly, you might start to roll that left thigh bone towards the ground. So it feels like you're sort of kind of squaring your hips forward, but we're all different, and I don't want you to force that. And then we just stay a moment or 2 here. Carefully, lean to your right, Bend both knees, come off of your block. Step, left foot forward. You can situate your blocks. We're on the back knee, so maybe you also situate your blanket. And then bend your right knee and reach back with your left hand for your right foot or towards your right foot. And we get that extension at our right hip. Some of us are going to get rid of the block or come onto our forearm. You can always lasso that back foot with your kitchen towel. A couple of moments here. Then let go of your back foot. Situate your blocks for your half split. Straighten your left leg, curl those toes back, hinge at your hip. We found a hip hinge earlier. This one just happens to be a little bit squared off compared to our triangle when we talked about it. But speaking of our triangle, we're now heading into pigeon, which at our hip joint is similar to our triangle front leg. So bend your left knee, situate your block, so all you're doing is aiming to sit side saddle. Once you're supported on your props, you can make a few little experimental changes to it. So I like to curl my back toes under and look to straighten that back leg as much as it's willing to, and then rotate that right thigh bone towards the ground as much as it's willing to. Totally fine to hang outside saddle. Our bodies are all different, and they feel really different every day and then every decade. So we'll take a moment here. Now, carefully lean to your right, bend your left, or to your left, sorry, bend your left knee, come off of your prop, and turn this into a seated cross-legged meditation. Now, that might mean sitting on your folded blanket. Maybe what you really want to do is lie down in our Shavasana final meditation. That's great too. If you're seated, palms up or down. If you're lying down, enjoy our rest and digest. Welcome to stay in your Shavasana final meditation as long as you'd like. If you're ready and you're lying down, gather your knees into your chest and very slowly come on up and join us in our seat. And then we just take a conscious moment of gratitude. I'm grateful that you've practiced with me today. I'm Andrea. I look forward to us doing this again together soon.